Another thing that starts to become important later on to strategy is understanding your team composition as well as the enemy team composition. And so tab in there brings up basically your tracking your score screen, if you will, how much damage you're doing to the enemy towns, and your siege damage as well as hero damage as well as healing, and overall XP. And so popping that up at the beginning of the game, you have about 30 seconds right when the game starts to position yourself where you're going to move out, etc., is a great opportunity to look at what the team composition is that you have. Do you have healers? Do you have warriors? How should you be talent speccing your hero in regards to what your team composition is? And then the same thing on the opposite side. So if they have maybe a lot of cloakers, do you want to take anything to help with that? Do they have a lot of healing? Is there somebody that your particular role needs to shut down on the other side? And these are things you learn over time. Each hero is different, what they're good at, etc. But understanding the composition on both sides becomes critical as you get more and more advanced into the game, and really getting into that deep strategy.
Another thing that I would give as a piece of advice to people coming from other games is a lot of other games in the genre, I think the players from those games have kind of have this preconceived notion that it's like if you get a certain amount of experience or leveling or whatever it might be, power behind the opponent, yeah, that you feel like the game is over and that there's no way of coming back. People who've played Heroes for a while, they know that that's not true with this game, and that this is a game of comebacks. And really the key thing, and this is the root of this advice I would give, is stay positive. The game is not over until your core drops. And so there's a lot of things you can do to come back. It could be picking a map objective at the right time. It could be sticking together and picking off one of the opponent team members at the right time, which then gives you this shift where now you can go engage in some larger team fight and actually take them out. It might be pushing a whole bunch of mercs down a lane, and while the opposing team is fighting you elsewhere, those mercs are pushing in that lane and really doing some serious damage in their base. So just because you lost someone early on, or you lost a map objective early on, the game's not over. Stick with it. And in fact, the other thing I'll say is this game it's a shorter game, 20-minute games. So there's really less burden in terms of sticking with it. It's not an hour-long game. You can actually get a couple of these in on a lunchtime. And so if you're going to be actually fighting out this game, stick with it to the end, and you'll be surprised how many times where you think you're in a losing position, you actually came back and ended up winning at the end.
I think that's a really good point. Those are kind of the moments of excitement that you get later on as you start to understand the game more, is how you feel like you're up against the ropes, and you can be up against the ropes because of either better technique, better team comp in the early part of the game, and as the talents advance, as you keep picking your sort of breakdown for your hero along with your team doing the same, you suddenly either equalize with the other team, or you take advantage of an opportunity. So they've been maybe doing a great job of sticking together or picking the right team fights, and you've been failing and you've team wiped even a few times. That doesn't matter. You still can come back from that. Where you suddenly in the later game pick off a single hero, then manage to get a team wipe in your favor, you grab the boss merc, something like that happens, and you suddenly have this opportunity to push through and get to their core and win. So those moments are super exciting, and they're kind of what you live for, and it's easy to get caught up as a new player in not understanding that. You have to play many games to get to the point where you really understand that, and those are some of the most exciting moments in the game, I think.
I would also suggest that people use your pings. I think pings are really important. Communication, there's a really good ping system in the game where it contextually will say things based on what you ping, and you've got different pings that you can use. And so letting your teammates know what you're doing, letting your team know what objectives you're going after can be super helpful, because then they can come either help, or they can make the decision that, you know what, you've got that handled, I know that you've actually covered that area of the map, I can move to a different area to cover that area of the map. So I think this is a real critical thing, is just communication through the game. It doesn't even need to be chatting, because sometimes that can just take time. The pings really help you kind of express your intent of what you're doing.
Yeah, that was one of the big learnings for me, was intent, especially when playing by myself. When playing with you guys, we generally Skype or do something like that to communicate, but when playing with people I don't know, I've been spending a lot of time saying "on my way." If they call out something, if you hold Alt and left click, you can drag it left, right, up, down, and they have different contexts. But it can, once you start doing it and getting used to it, you do it very sort of automatically. And so now a lot of on my way when they ping something, which means that generally creates a lot of the rest of the team to go, oh, I see, I should go too. And then, or I'm on my way to take care of this wave of minions that have made it further down the lane into ours. I'll take care on my way here. And so just that little bit every once in a while really helps the team start to understand, and you create teamwork in a place where you're really playing with strangers randomly thrown together. It's something that even for new players, if you just think about it a little bit, get a little further down there, you can actually start creating that teamwork that I think Heroes really requires.
And tying into the whole communication thing, I think one thing that's important, I mean probably in any team game, but especially in Heroes since it is so team focused, is that sometimes even a bad decision that the entire team rallies behind is better than a bunch of individual decisions where everyone runs off and goes and does their own thing. Because sure enough, those individuals are going to get jumped by more forces, by 2 guys, by 3 guys, and they're not going to be able to succeed. But at least if you were all together, even if maybe getting the Merc camp at that time might not have been the best decision right then, it's still a better situation because now you're still up, everyone's up, you can now move on to the next objective. So this all goes back to this theme of just being positive, listening to your teammates, rallying together. If you want to communicate and say like, hey, look guys, I don't think we should go do that, that's fine, do that. But at the end of the day, if 4 guys run off to one place, probably you should join them.
Yep.
Because you by yourself is not necessarily going to be able to, beat the boss or take down that next fort that you were trying. So just stick with your team and then usually good results will follow.